Welcome to 15 Minutes. I'm Penny Bell. Today we're talking about Christopher Nolan's Odyssey, how a mob spent months rage posting about a movie they hadn't seen, got the casting wrong, and then the thing came out and it was a masterpiece. Greek tragedy has never been this funny. A group of grown adults got mad about a movie before they saw the movie, built an entire rage economy on a casting choice they didn't understand, and then the movie came out and it was a masterpiece. That's the plot. That's the whole Greek tragedy, and it's funnier than anything Homer wrote, so here's the setup. Christopher Nolan, the last man alive who can make people fistfight over IMAX seats, dropped his adaptation of the Odyssey. $250 million, Matt Damon as Odysseus in what people are calling a career-best performance. Nearly 3 hours of Nolan doing the thing where he films a real ocean instead of asking a computer nicely, and the reviews came back stupid good. Games Radar gave it a perfect 5 out of 5 and called it a Film of the Year contender, saying post-Oppenheimer, Nolan is still operating at the height of his powers. The Rotten Tomatoes score landed around 95 to 98% depending on which source you trust and what hour you check, because those numbers move like a tide. But at the high end, it overtakes The Dark Knight as his best-reviewed film ever. His best film is a Batman movie about a clown. Now it might be a poem about a guy who can't find his way home from work. Relatable. But let's rewind to the part where the internet lost its mind. Because months before anybody saw a single frame, a very loud corner of the right decided this movie was an attack on civilization itself. The crime, casting, Lupita Nyong'o, Elliot Page. That was enough. Elon Musk called it, quote, one of the dumbest and twisted things I've ever heard. A Newsmax host named Rob Finnerty called it a rewriting of history. And here's where it gets messy, and I mean genuinely embarrassing for the people involved. The outrage was built on a factual error. The Rage Machine apparently thought Elliot Page was playing Achilles. Page plays Sinon, a completely different, smaller role, so an entire culture war meltdown got constructed around a character these people couldn't even correctly name. It's like getting into a bar fight over a guy who isn't in the bar, and I want to be fair, the coverage itself got so tangled that some outlets repeated the confusion while trying to correct it. When the debunking is also confused, you know the discourse has fully eaten itself. But here's the real punchline. Rewriting of history. My guy. It's the Odyssey. It's a myth about a man whose crew gets eaten by a one-eyed giant and who chats with a witch on an island. There is no history to rewrite. There's no documentary footage of the Cyclops. This is a story that has been retold, retranslated, and reinvented for thousands of years by every culture that ever got its hands on it. Treating it like there's one correct, implicitly white canonical version is like getting mad they changed the ending of a knock-knock joke. And this isn't the first time this exact crowd did this exact thing. A few years back, a scholar named Emily Wilson published a translation of the Odyssey, first woman to do the full English version, and she got dogpiled, her work called a woke abomination, so the pattern is clear. Ancient text, endlessly reinterpreted for millennia, and a certain type of person shows up furious that it dared to breathe. The Daily Beast basically laid the whole thing out and pointed at how the rage runs entirely on trailers and publicity stills, not the actual work, because the moment the actual work arrived, the backlash evaporated. You cannot boycott a masterpiece into existence. Well, you can, technically. Outrage is free marketing. Every angry post was a billboard. They funded the exact thing they hated. Chef's kiss. Now here's the layer I actually find fascinating, because it's about the machine, not the movie. Universal made a very deliberate call. They skipped influencer screenings. You know the drill. Normally a big release, the studio flies out a bunch of creators, sits them in a theater, and the first reactions you see online are gushy little clips of somebody saying, "Oh my god, I was shaking." Best film of the decade before a single real critic has weighed in. It floods the zone with hype so the actual reviews land softer. Universal looked at that whole apparatus and said, no thanks. Critics only. And critics? They were thrilled. Openly. Scott Mantz, co-founder of the Hollywood Critics Association, said, and I'm cleaning this up slightly for the delicate ears of my audio processor. Good, because everyone knows those so-called influencer social media reactions are total nonsense. David Ehrlich at IndieWire said this is what Homer would have wanted, which sure, the blind poet definitely had strong opinions about press screening policy. But here's what nobody's asking, and it's the sharpest thing in this whole story. Tim Grierson from Screen International said the quiet part out loud. He pointed out that this was a canny move on Nolan's part, because now the critics who do get invited feel special. They feel valued. They feel like, oh, wow, Christopher Nolan thinks I'm a smart professional critic. And when you make someone feel chosen, feel flattered, feel like they're finally being respected after years of being shoved behind a bunch of ring light creators, they tend to be very warm about your movie. So think about that for 1 second. The whole complaint about influencers is that access buys goodwill, that the free trip and the VIP treatment manufacture positive buzz, but flattering critics into feeling important, that's the same trick in a nicer suit. It's manipulation with better tailoring. And a critic literally admitted it while celebrating. Nobody in the coverage circled back to ask whether the glowing reviews are partly the sound of people being buttered up. You don't have to bribe someone if you can make them feel seen. That's not me being cynical. That's just being right faster. Which brings me to my favorite little side quest in all this. Himesh Patel. He plays Eurylochus and reportedly he's in something like 2/3 of the movie. 2/3. And the marketing buried him. Pretended he was barely in it. A fan put it perfectly, said he gives one of the best performances in the film with a very prominent role, yet the marketing acts like he's a cameo. The Daily Beast literally ran a note called "The least famous Odyssey star gives its best performance." This is the fame machine at its most naked. A studio pre-decides who the stars are. They build the posters around the names that sell tickets. The Damons, the Zendayas, the Tom Hollands. And the guy actually carrying huge chunks of the film gets left off the marquee because his name doesn't move product yet, and then audiences show up and go, "Wait, who's that?" Every time the crowd finds the overlooked one and drags him into the light against the machine's script. That's the good part of internet fame culture. The one time the mob's aim is true. And look, the demand for this thing is genuinely deranged in the best way. It shattered the record for most seats sold in a single day at the biggest screen in the UK. Premium showings sold out across America. Scalpers were listing tickets on eBay for up to $1,000. $1,000. To sit in the dark and watch a man not get home for 20 years. There are relationships that cost less than that and deliver the same emotional experience. But that's the Nolan trick, and it's the only real magic left in movies. He makes going to the theater feel like scarcity, like an event. Like if you don't see it on the biggest screen possible, you failed a personal test of character. In an age where everything streams to your palm for the price of a sandwich, he's the last guy who can make you feel FOMO about a chair. So here's where I land. A movie about a man surviving monsters, temptation, and his own ego got attacked by monsters, survived the temptation to sell out to influencer hype, and beat everybody. The people who raged got played. The critics who gloated got flattered. The buried actor got vindicated, and the myth, 3,000 years deep, shrugged and outlived all of them again. The Odyssey wins because the Odyssey always wins. That's the whole point of the story, and somehow the loudest people in the room still didn't read it. Thanks for spending some of your 15 minutes with me today. I'm Penny Bell. Find us wherever podcasts live, and come back next time.
Grab news. Thomas.